people at the back. The question was, if you're thinking about going for funding, should you go to an investor and approach them for mentoring? You know, how do we do this?
But I want.
You can bootstrap, but you want some help in knowing what investors are looking for.
Let me give my 1 minute. Everybody wants to jump in.
Okay.
So I do think it is of value. A lot of people do come to us early on just to validate, because if you have seen the market, you have looked at maybe 10 things which are happening. To some of that validation is helpful. But that being said, very few investors are able to get into any formal mentoring roles, A, because of conflict of interest and or other issues. But I do think informally you can get some time to get their thoughts. It is worth it.
Samir?
I mean, the simple answer to the question is what Ravi said. Usually that doesn't work very well. Because frankly, before you raise funding, you're on the opposite sides of the negotiating table. And getting too close, getting in bed with the person who's on the other side doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So realistically, that doesn't work too well. It is better to get a mentor who is close to that VC rather than the VC himself or herself. What's that?
How do I look for these kind of persons?
Come to events like these, I guess.
Yeah, you'll meet a lot of them here. Can I just move the discussion on for a second? So we've kind of got to the stage now. Let's imagine that we've talked to various people. We've realised that without raising some funds, it's going to be really difficult for us to either scale our business or grow whatever. So now you've decided you are going for the funding, and now you've got the VC or the angel in mind. You've got to prepare for that funding, okay? So if we're thinking about it from that point of view, Kevin, maybe I can get you in. As somebody who obviously has to look at a lot of pitches, what do you wish the entrepreneurs had thought about before they came to you? So this is, how do you make sure you've got the right pitch for these guys? Kevin?
Well, the first thing I would say is that before you come to an investor to pitch, you should be able to do an elevator pitch. And I'm not saying necessarily boil everything down to 15 seconds, but if you just find me in an elevator and I say I have 100 different things to go over, and then the investors have even more that they just kind of get towards themselves. We don't have time to think about the business for 30 minutes for every single person that comes to us. If you can boil your business down to 30 seconds, you're much ahead. Then also you need to think about, if you want someone to invest in you, you have to think what they're going to get out of it. Now, some angel investors invest because the money may not matter too much to them, and they like to take on mentorship roles. But most of them want to get returns. So if you're going to pitch to an investor, you need to make sure that the way that you present your business is in such a way that they understand that they're going to get returns. And generally, for angel investing, you do equity investments. And so you need to prove to them that you're going to be able to grow your business to a level that's going to increase the valuation enough that they're going to get a return on their initial capital.
Okay. No, thanks. In the stages when you're preparing your pitch, what else should you be asking for? Because cash is only one thing that an investor could give you. There's other things. That I wanted to ask is, what do you wish the entrepreneur kind of comes to you with? What's your wish list of what you want them to come to you with? And also, what other things should they think about getting from an investor apart from just the cash?
Right. So I think first answer, I guess, is around some of the things that were already covered, which is we do wish that, and it happens a lot of times that the entrepreneur can clearly state the pain point or the problem area they are trying to address, talk about how they're going to monetize, whether it's indirect or direct, talk about differentiation, market size, and team. These are like 5 big things. If they can quickly touch upon that, so investor has a sense of that. The other thing is, in terms of raising cash, I think the other thing which we also want to understand is towards which end. And I think we are going into more details there, but what is the goal of your round? Where will it get you to? Is the next place where you get from this money is going to be the next milestone where you can raise subsequent rounds? That becomes important, because a lot of people, and I also am an angel investor, so I look at from other perspective as well. A lot of people, especially on the angel side, will try to raise maybe too little, and after a while they realize that they need either one more follow-up angel round, they're not venture ready. So I think that is one of the things that you should keep in mind, which is, okay, towards what end will you be ready from the venture metrics to some extent. Okay. And then the other thing, I guess, what else to look from investor? I think the investor can definitely give you feedback on what their opinion is, which will work based on what they think, so they can have some strategic input into that.
Okay, so what kind of strategic inputs have you seen, and what should people be thinking about asking for? Because I think one of the things that I've seen with entrepreneurs is they just think cash is the answer to everything, but cash isn't the answer to everything. The cash is going to be used for things that's hopefully going to scale their business.
Right. So I think it depends on what kind of investor or what his background is, where he's able to add value. Let's say you're talking an investor who has been an entrepreneur in that domain. He may have very specific ideas around maybe a product strategy. I mean, it just varies so broadly. But in general, it depends also on what is the critical success factor of your business. What is the one thing that make or break will make this business? If you can get some inputs around that, I think that probably makes sense.
Okay, great. Samir, you've pitched, or you've prepared for pitching, both in India and also in Silicon Valley. Would you talk a bit about the difference in the experiences?
Firstly, I mean, one thing that I always encourage everybody, I mean, the Sequoia Capital, that's a very famous VC firm. Their website is sequoiacap.com. Go to their section which says how to create a business plan. That is one of the best, most articulate explanations of how to write a business plan. Very short. It's not like it's above the fold kind of thing. So everybody should look at that. However, having looked at that, one of the mistakes I would not get into is spend all your time trying to retrofit your thoughts into that framework. That is just a guideline, right? The thoughts have to flow naturally with passion. Right? That's very, very important. So that was just a tip for everybody. Now, as far as difference between pitching in India and pitching in the US, I mean, one of the main things I've seen is in the US, the ecosystem is where people have actually started companies, sold companies, then become general partners at VC firms. In India, the ecosystem is slightly different. A lot of the investors actually come from a very financial background, right? So that's the reason my personal experience has been that going to the VCs at an early stage in India, it is very, very hard to raise money, simply because investing is not done based on a gut feel, right? In the US, my experience has been that these people have actually run companies, have started companies, taken risks, and a lot of investing happens with gut feel, saying, I like the team, I think the idea might work, let's take a bet. Here, it doesn't quite happen that way. So what I've seen, what works better here is you actually go to the angels, keep your costs low, get to a stage where your product is actually proving itself in the market, and then go to a VC. I think that's kind of the difference I've seen.
So one of the things that's coming out is when you're preparing for funding then, if you're looking for funding in India, and Ravi, it'll be interesting to get your take on this, but if you're looking for funding in India, the chances are you've got to make sure that you've got robust financials that you can kind of back up. Whereas, and I agree with this because I actually ended up giving up in India, and I actually went to the UK to get angels, because as was a bit more, we were quite early stage and it was more gut feel. But Ravi, would you agree or disagree?
Sure, no, I do agree to some extent. Let me also give a little more of my background. So our fund is based in North Carolina, US. I just moved to Bangalore in July with the goal of looking at India as an investment. So I have definitely looked at how investing happens. So I would definitely agree there is probably a little more caution. That has to do with the track record of the partners. If you are somebody who has a track record, who is more willing versus somebody who's still trying to establish. I mean, if you think about a life cycle of a partner, he needs at least 7 to 10 years to establish himself. So you still don't have a Vinod Khosla in India. Once you get that, they will have more capacity to take risks because they have to still justify their existence in some sense. They are still trying to get those exits to create value for the LP. So I think that is part of it. I mean, if you are kind of the new guy, you'll probably be more risk averse in some sense. So that is definitely true. The other way to look at it is maybe it's a supply and demand too, right? If you and that is probably true on the angel side. And again, enough has been written, so there are a lot more angel groups and incubators coming out. But it's like you said, in '99 there were a lot more supply, so easy to raise money. If the supply is tight, the checks are more. So that's kind of part of the equation.
So, Samir, would you agree though? Because I know that with I think your current organisation, you've got amazing people running it, but it was still hard for you to try and get funding here.
Yeah, I mean, Airtight Networks was a classic case. Kiran was actually the CEO of Tech Mahindra at that time. I had come back from the Valley with three exits under my belt, and the third one was actually a founder of, original writer of the Bluetooth spec. Accomplished people, but we had a hard time, very hard time raising money in India. We really tried. Zero. And we had, everybody said no, and then we went to the Valley and raised $10 million. So, very honestly, I know I'm painting a little bit of a pessimistic picture as far as the VC firm, but frankly, the picture is changing. As I see people coming from having seen successes and what kinds of returns are available if risk is taken, the number of such people is increasing, but it is still hard, quite hard.
Manish, would you add?
Yeah, I think we have to understand what scenario we are in India. If you look at the whole business of investments, especially angels, VCs, there have not been too many exits that have happened in India. So in the sense that our risk-taking ability depends upon how much reward we get for taking that risk. And if there are not enough examples of those rewards coming through, then you are more risk-averse, right? So if you put money in a stock market yourself and you make some money, then you get excited and you put some more money. But if you lose money, then you sort of, walk cautiously. I think we are in a phase where there are not enough exits in the system for the investors to take that kind of risks which Silicon Valley investors are taking. So we have to understand that and then turn it around in our favor as an entrepreneur. I feel it's good because what happens is that as an entrepreneur, essentially, you are trying to take your idea to the next level where it's almost like a running business, quasi-running business before you can actually get funding. So that tough road sometimes toughens you and makes you make those hard decisions, really find what customer needs and build your business that way.
Anirudh, did you want to add something?
Yeah. Actually, I have, since he has painted a pessimistic picture, I would like to say that, one of my best experience in India has been with a person who had no entrepreneurship experience, Harvard MBA, and then from there directly went into the VC firm, and that was my best experience. On the other hand, some of the people who have actually done companies before, I feel that they can get colored with the kind of industry they are experts in. For example, we are sort of in India are in a business where actually very few, I don't think any deal has been done in this particular field in India. So when I went to the normal technology VCs, they were like, we can't justify this to our PEs, our partners. We can't justify investing in your company to our partners. On the other hand, the MBA guy which I was talking about, maybe since we are in financial services, that was a good match. That's why actually we could connect with that person very well. But I just wanted to put that out.
So, one thing I'd like to say to that is just in our angel group, what we found is as our numbers have been growing and other angel groups have been coming up, is that people are now kind of coming together where maybe there'll be 10 guys in a room, 10 angels, and 9 of them will be finance guys and they won't understand some kind of tech venture, but then that 10th guy will understand. And he'll be able to explain it to everyone else, and they'll be happy to take that risk going in with someone that they can trust. And then also to speak to the lack of successful exits, one of our first company last year raised $200 million and with a much higher valuation. So there are